The UP is home to hundreds of waterfalls, large and small, some popular tourist destinations, and many hidden deep in the woods. One lesser-known waterfall is Wildcat Falls, tucked away in an old-growth forest just north of Waters Meet. I met up with a group from Northwoods Alliance for a hike to the waterfall and to learn about this unique piece of property it flows through.
Northwoods Alliance is a 501c3 and a 509A2. It's a nonprofit, public charity, land conservation organization. We're looking at a waterfall on Scott and Howe Creek, which is a series of steps named Wildcat Falls. From up above here, we can see the series of steps, and most of them seem to be between 4 and 6 feet, that form about a 25 to 28 foot elevation difference in the creek itself. And it's not like it's any great distance either. I think is it 100 feet long maybe? That's about all. Then what really gets interesting, and as we get down below the falls, the canyon wall that's formed by those very rocks. Some of it's covered with trees and some of it is just open rock. But you can go a lot of different places in the UP and you can see a waterfall. And you can go a lot of different places in the UP and you can find rock outcrops. And you can find trout streams, and you can find vernal pools that are apparent on this property. And you can even find old growth forest with cedar and hemlock and so forth. But to find all those things in such close proximity as you do on this parcel make it pretty special. I mean, just this trail that we walked in this morning to come to the waterfall, it'll be less than a mile and we'll be back to the vehicle and we'll have seen all these different features. This project truly is an ecological marvel. The public access is in the commercial forest program, which allows, let's say, limited public access, and it's only as good as the landowner's wishes to keep the land in the program. This property had been part of the Ottawa National Forest for decades, and they traded it away in a process that went on for a number of years. Their justification for trading it was that it was a somewhat isolated part of the Ottawa National Forest and that it had its own boundary lines. It wasn't contiguous with let's say, a greater block. In 2016, the recipient of the lands contacted us and asked us if we had an interest, and I brought together a small group of conservation-minded investors to purchase the land from him, and then they approached Northwoods Alliance with a letter requesting help in finding a permanent and publicly beneficial conservation solution for the property. So that's what brought us to the project that we now call the Wildcat Falls Community Forest Project. The Community Forest Program mandates public access for, let's say, the non-motorized traditional forest uses. And those things would include hiking, so bird watching and so forth, and cross-country skiing and hunting and fishing and so on. In 2019, just a year ago, this project ranked number 4 in the country amongst the U.S. Forest Service Community Forest and Open Space Conservation Program applicants, assuring us of 50% of the acquisition funds needed to purchase the property. So what we've done through our public outreach is work to acquire the matching funds, which need, according to the Community Forest Program, need to be non-federal dollars. So we're working with local foundations, conservation groups, and individuals. The Wildcat Falls project is 160 acres. There's 120 acres that is contiguous here with the waterfall going through it. And then there's a 40-acre parcel that's on a hillside just up from the Michigan DNR boat landing on County Line Lake. This part of the property is northern hardwood, and this is a big oak that I'm leaning back against. Community engagement has been really satisfying here. From the beginning, the Upper Peninsula Environmental Coalition gave us strong support. That was followed by Friends of Sylvania Wilderness. Then we got a real nice, modest grant last fall from the Community Foundation of the Upper Peninsula, their Sustainable Forestry and Wildlife Fund. We even received financial support from Weyerhaeuser Corporation last fall. And more recently, just earlier this year, the Copper Country chapter of Trout Unlimited gave us a modest grant as well. So we've had a pretty good deal of community engagement, along with dozens of individuals, to help us achieve the goal.
This property is so diverse, so complex with the old growth. The old growth alone is worth saving. Old growth is usually defined as a forest that has been in existence undisturbed for at least 150 years. And some of these trees in here are at least that old. The cedars, there's quite a number of cedars in here, and these cedars can last a long time, hundreds of years, especially on these rock outcrops. But old growth is important because there's so little left. Most of the forests in Michigan, including the UP, are not old growth. They're actually young forests. They're only maybe 100 years old. And as a result, they're not as diverse, they're not as complex ecologically. A lot of these trees the seeds can't get started in the thick duff. And so they tend to, if they're lucky enough to fall on an old rotting log like that, often called a nurse log, they'll be able to sprout, and it gives them constant moisture and it gives them a place to get started. And then as the log decomposes, the roots are already wrapped around it and through it, and the log will decompose and disappear, and the tree is left remaining looking like it's standing up on stilts. The author escapes me, but he said a great society's legacy should be the amount of wild land that it saves, not the amount of land that it destroys. So that's basically what we're trying to do here. This piece of property not only has extensive old growth forest, both hemlock and cedar, the cedar becoming quite rare in the area, but it also has the premium trout stream running through it with Wildcat Falls, a beautiful waterfall. It has these magnificent outcrops. It has this rugged terrain. And this property has probably not been disturbed since before the Europeans invaded the area. This is pre-Cambrian rock. A geology friend of mine has told me that this rock goes back between 1 and 2 billion years. Billion, with a B. So the entire package of all of these features in one small 120-acre parcel here is just unbelievable. And it's worth saving. So that's what we're trying to do.
I feel somewhat of a personal responsibility to help provide these places for future generations. And this project specifically has been 10 years for us in the making, and that seems like a lot of time. It seems overwhelming, but really what's 10 years in the life of the rock outcrop or these old growth trees?